safe driving and enter by October 31st. Tito's Handmade Vodka is America's favorite vodka for a reason. From the first distillery in Texas, Tito's distilled till
What's happening, everybody? Good to be back in studio. Tough day today. Going to be a really tough show. We lost Carol Davis, Mark Davis's mom, and my dear friend George Atkinson, one of the most important people in my life. So going to be a rough one today. Thanks for being here. Okay. Just trying to make the best of it. Life is short. Hug the ones you love, man. I just got back from visiting my parents in Florida. Kind of comes full circle when I see the news of George today.
First beer free.
Okay.
Check out Atkinson.com anytime and listen whenever you want. The one thing is time stops for no one. It's the temperatures on the Raiders take a break. In November as they'll host the Jacksonville Jaguars. So
all right, yeah, George was a great person. So was Mrs. Davis. Let's spend some time today paying tribute to their legacy, and we'll have time to get into the Jaguars.
Radio 920 AM. Your afternoon Raiders fix with your boy Q on Unnecessary Roughness from 2 to 5 on Raider Nation Radio 920 AM KRLB Las Vegas. It's the JT the Brick Show.
You know, we're going to have a lot of positive energy. The guys that love to compete and play with passion are going to have a chance at the place.
Your silver and black home to sound on for over 25 years.
Man, I'm loving it, man. They're making my job tremendously easy to be out here with these young, talented players, man. I think we have a really good team. I'm super excited. I'm already loving this fan base. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
And now, here's JT the Brick.
Out of the gate, JT, as we begin a new week here on the flagship of the Silver and Black Raider Nation Radio, 920 AM, the Raiders mobile app. And we are streaming live on YouTube. And I hope you had a good weekend. Just got back from visiting my mom and dad in Florida on Raider bye week. Got back Saturday evening and ready to roll this week as we get you ready for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That'll be the next home game coming off the bye week. This will be one of the more difficult shows I ever hosted in my career because of the passing of two individuals who had a massive role in this organization. Carol Davis, Mark's mom, passed away on Friday. Mark paid tribute to her by lighting the torch in memory of her late husband, Al Davis. We will take calls today and thank Mrs. Davis for the impact that she's had on Raider Nation. She's one of the most powerful women in the history of sports. She saw it all. She was right there with Al Davis for all the greatest games, all the emotional moments, everything that's happened in Raider history. Mrs. Davis was right there with Mr. Davis. And can you imagine the life stories that she has and what she was able to see in her life? I got a chance to know Mrs. Davis over the years. She was very kind to me and my wife, and we just enjoyed being around her. She was a beautiful woman. She cared deeply about others. Like her husband, Al Davis, she did a lot of things behind the scenes that no one knows about, caring for others. And we pray for Mrs. Davis as she is in a higher place now. And Mark Davis and what he's going through now, losing a mom, losing a parent is so difficult. And Mark has been spending a lot of time going back and forth to the Bay Area as his mom's life was coming to an end. And very proud of Mark and his legacy with his family, his dad, Al, and his mom, Carol. And we wish nothing but the best of the Davis family as they mourn here and everybody throughout the organization. This is a very important show because of the impact of what Mrs. Davis had on the life of the Raiders. And if you're a Raider fan, no matter what you think of the current team, teams of the past, whatever happened, please show the dignity and respect for Mrs. Davis and basically the foundational piece of this organization. This has been a very difficult year. One of the most powerful women in Raider history, Cheryl Nichols, passed recently. Cheryl had a tremendous impact when it came to the organization. To lose Mrs. Davis and Cheryl in the same year, it's pretty hard to fathom. So with all that happening, condolences to Mark on the loss of Mrs. Davis. Also, Mark Davis lost his best friend, and I lost one of the most important people in my life in George Atkinson. I have a very heavy heart today because George had an amazing impact on my life. Whenever someone passes away, I try to avoid saying me or my or I. It's always about the individual that passes away. When you host a sports talk show and you're trying to tell stories and pay tribute, it's hard not to include yourself in the story in some degree. George Atkinson was my Raider mentor. He was my guiding light into this organization. He is the reason I'm here today. Without George Atkinson, I would not have the life that I have with the silver and black, and it would have had a deep effect on the rest of my life. George took me under his wing. He was my first ever partner on the Silver and Black show at Silver and Black Productions, and he brought me in as his partner on the Raiders pregame show in 1998, along with Artie Gigantino and David Hum. It was going to be interesting right out of the gate. When I got hired, someone told me real highly, Bruce Allen, who hired me, said, get to know George quick. Get to know George quick. He's going to be really important to you. I said, what do you mean? He said, you'll figure it out. And I came in and I went to George and I said, you know, whatever I could do to help you and make you sound good, but whatever you could do to help me, please do. And we built a bond that had lasted 30 years and some of the best years of my life. I knew George's sons, the twins who both passed away, Brittany, his daughter, other members of his family, Denise, his wife, and I considered them family. They considered my wife and children their family. And I'll never have a relationship like him again. I have great relationships with other people with the Raiders, you know most of them, but George was just someone different. George did a lot for me. The countless times we sat and drank a Heineken or a beer or a Modelo or sat back and traveled on the road to Europe, to London with the Raiders, the countless shows we've done, the appearances that he had on this show, too many to count, and just sitting on airplanes with him at airports, at golf tournaments, playing golf with him, going out to dinner with him. This is hitting me really hard. George was fighting a really difficult battle the last few months of his life. I was able to stay in touch with him on text messages, and I wish I would have had one more opportunity to sit down. But I'm at peace today because I always told George how much I loved him. He said the same back. And I'm going to be changed for the rest of my life on this one. I knew this day would come. I knew eventually George would pass on because of the illness that he had here down the stretch. But it really hit home last night, and I've been struggling with it ever since. So when it comes to George Atkinson, I mean, you can all have your Mount Rushmore of your favorite players of all time. Who means more to you? You know, you have favorite players, favorite legends. It's going to be hard for anybody to surpass the life that I had with George. And he brought me in. He didn't make me feel like an outsider. He brought me in and he welcomed me into his life and his family. And he had a very difficult life. From Morris Brown College to when he came to the AFL, he was automatically one of the great rookies to play in this game. As he came in, he was a multiple Pro Bowler. He was a great kick returner, punt returner. Started off as a corner, was one of the original members of Soul Patrol. He was a Super Bowl champion. And you want to talk about a guy who played in the greatest games? He was in the middle of all of them. And he did get his Super Bowl ring. But for George, I got a chance to see George as a confidant to Mr. Davis, and then watch George become best friends with Mark Davis. And to be able to have a front row seat to see that And to watch that relationship develop was pretty special. And George would always pull me in on the sidelines, or George would pull me in after a game, or pull me in and he would give me advice. And he gave me some very blunt advice throughout my career. You know, at times I don't make the best decisions. And I would run decisions by George, and George would be very blunt and direct with me and say, yes or no. Don't even think about that. Stay in your lane. Do what you need to do. Be a part of this team for a long time, not a short period of time like some others. And I had to follow George's advice, and I'd always listen to him. I was proud that George treated my sons like his sons. When George's sons lost their lives, it was very difficult for me and my wife to see George go through that type of pain. And, whenever I would go out with him and we'd go have a private moment and I'd ask him how he was doing, he was just a classic tough guy, the tough guy with the big heart. He was a really tough football player to look back at his legacy. Chuck Noll called them the criminal element. The hits on Lynn Swann, the legal hits, the dirty hits, the impact that he had. George would do anything for the Raiders. He put his life into the Raider organization, as many did. But for George, it was 365, 24/7. George Atkinson never took a day off from being a Raider. George was a Raider every day of his life, along with being a dad and a grandfather and everybody else. He was a mentor to many people. He was best friends to Jack Tatum. He also mentored young players like Charles Woodson, Eric Allen, and all the greats to play for this team, because he was a coach and he was a consultant, and he was always right next to Mark Davis all the time. That's incredible. I mean, Mark worked at his liquor store. Think of that, and how the relationship of Cliff, Mark, and George developed. And it was really cool to see them. You know, I tell this story. My wife tells it better than I do. We were in London. We were in London with the Raiders, and the Raiders, were going to play on a Sunday. And it was like a Thursday or a Friday, and we're at the team hotel in London. And George Atkinson was at the bar. George liked to sit at the bar and have his cocktails and beers. And he was sitting there with my wife and I and a couple other people. And George said, Cliff and I are going to Amsterdam tomorrow. He said, Amsterdam? We're in London. He goes, yeah, it's really easy to get there. And we were like, oh boy. And we're going to go there. We're going to come right back. And I said, oh boy, Amsterdam? And the next morning, Cliff and George are out there in the morning, dressed up like you wouldn't believe, to go to Amsterdam. And it turned out that day there was a transit strike in London. The trains were down. And I remember them walking back into the hotel like two sad little boys, that their trip was canceled. And they went right back to the bar. And then the next day they went to Amsterdam. And they went to Amsterdam and they came back, and I was doing the sidelines and I saw George. I said, George, how was Amsterdam? He said, as good as you could imagine. And him and Cliff were just soulmates as brothers, man. And to watch them together was really cool. I'm going to talk a lot about George, and I'd like to take your calls, because George was a broadcaster with the Raiders on top of being one of their great players. George was the original host with myself as Silver and Black on the Silver and Black show. And George and I had no experience. And we'd go into the studio. I didn't know what I was doing, and George didn't know much. But we had a lot of fun and a lot of laughs, and we got a chance to interview the coaches and the other legends, and we grew together. And then on the pregame show that we did for a number of years at the West Side Club at the Coliseum, it was just George coming in there, and I would talk to George about the significance of the games. George always understood that every game was the biggest game. Of course, he played in the Super Bowl and won. He played in the big games. But George treated every game like it was a 10 out of 10. Similar to Pete Carroll, who says, every game is a championship game. Pete Carroll has proved that in his legacy as a coach at USC and the Seahawks before he came here. Pure football man. But for George, I just want to spend a few more minutes on his broadcast career. Not many people could do what George did. George went into the booth. George was on the sideline. George was co-hosting shows that were pretty important back in the day when the Raiders weren't the Las Vegas Raiders, which is now a multi-billion-dollar entity. George was there in Alameda and in Oakland. And George was an ambassador for the team, an employee for Mark Davis and Mrs. Davis and Al Davis. And he went out there and he spread the gospel of the Raider Nation. Many people were intimidated by George because George was an intimidating guy. But once you got to know George and you got on the inside with him, there was no one like him. So, I look back at life. I just got back from visiting my mom and dad, who are 87 and 85. I wish George would have lived till 85 and 87 like my parents. Whenever you leave your parents and you go see your parents and you don't know if it's going to be the last time, you hope it's not. You hope it's going to be a time where you see him, you say goodbye, and you see him again. It's very interesting when you deal with people who are going through illness. And I learned this with Jim Brown, who had a big impact on my life, and to George. I just wish I had one more phone conversation with George. I wish I had one more chance to say goodbye to George and tell him how much I loved him, because I really did love him. And, we'll see George on the other side, and it'll be unique because, as I said, my life is historically changed because of George Atkinson. Reason I'm sitting in this studio today, the reason why I have the opportunities to be there and give some Raider information out, right or wrong at times, is because I had the confidence that George Atkinson said, "You're one of us. You're with us now. Speak your mind. Ask me if you need any help." And he meant it. And I'm happy that I became friends with George Atkinson. He's one of the most important people that I had a chance to build a relationship. And it was more than just a relationship. It's a guardianship. It's a relationship that I'm always going to look back on and say, man, where would I be without George today? Not as a broadcaster, not as a radio host, whatever I end up doing with the Raiders the rest of my life. It's at a point now where I'm just happy that I knew a guy that let me inside, that gave me a chance to be there with him for a portion of his life. I wasn't a teammate to him on the field, but I was a broadcast teammate with him, and I became a friend. So it's heavy today. It's really heavy today. The last year or two around here has been really heavy. John Vella just passed. Jim Otto seems like it was recently. Another mentor of mine was Morris Bradshaw. We mentioned Cheryl Nichols. Mrs. Davis. I'll never forget the game where no one was in the building, but Mrs. Davis lit the torch as we started this journey in Vegas. And every time I'd go to an event, the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, or a Raider event here, Mrs. Davis would be there, either in her wheelchair or sitting at the table with a smile, greeting my wife and I and making us feel at home. I'm proud to be a part of this family in whatever my role is, has been, and will be going forward. But to me, it's all about relationships. It's about having relationships in life. In the position that I'm in, especially now, there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of false energy. There's a lot of doubt with people. But there's no doubt in my life with the friends I've made here with the Raiders, especially the former players and the legends and the people that I consider lifelong impactful people in my life. George Atkinson's on my Mount Rushmore of the Raiders. He always has been. But more importantly, he's a dear friend and was a great confidant. So for Mrs. Carol Davis and for George Atkinson, may they rest in peace. I don't know how we're going to handle this week on that. We're going to talk football. We're going to get into the game. Raiders are coming off their bye week. This means a lot more to me than a football game coming up, but the football game means a lot because Mrs. Davis wanted to win every game, and so did George Atkinson. And I think we could pay tribute to them, and I hope I'm interviewing Pete Carroll tomorrow. I've been texting with Max Crosby. I'm hoping that the team goes out there and wins one. for Mrs. Davis and George Atkinson. I don't care what the team's record is right now. I'm disappointed with it. I get it. We care. We want to win every game. But when you lose members of your family and you lose someone as important as Mrs. Davis, Mark's mom, and Mark's best friend, please keep that in consideration of what Mark Davis is going through at this time in his life. Mark's good to a lot of people that you're not aware of. And this is a heavy, heavy day and weekend for him as he's saying goodbye to two people, most importantly, his mother, but his best friend. Cliff passed away. You saw what Mark did at the Hall of Fame for Cliff. And I'm sure there's going to be something really good and heavy for George because Mark and George were as tight as any two people could be. All right. The number is 702-365-9200 if you want to get in. You kind of know how I do it on days like today. You know how I do it on days like today. I think when people pass away, they deserve more than 7 minutes of commentary. And you can call in. If you can't call in today, if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're going to watch it in the next day or two and you want to, call in days from now, you can go ahead and do that. And I think it's really important. We got a couple of callers who knew George well. Raider Man checked in first. Let me get to Raider Man out in Richmond, who has a very important connection with George Atkinson. Raider Man, what's happening?
Shouts out, JT. Appreciate that, man. I'm shouts out my brother Chris from West Oakland too. It's a heavy day for me, and I'm doing my best not to put the eye too hard on it because it's not my day. But it's going to be tough to do this testimony without it. So just kind of bear with me. We're going to do it as quick as possible. Shouts out first and foremost to Queen Davis. Miss Carolyn, I don't know, I can't really speak to her in any kind of depth because it's just always been a reverence and a respect. But in my personal history, as an 8-year-old child, I lost my mom. I literally lost my mom in December 81. So when the team left in 82, that was a really, really crushing thing for me. I think these were the pinnacle moments that kind of built who I became as Raider Man. That's a lot of the reason why I am the way that I am. I don't like stuff being taken from me. And so fast forward that 19 years, we had that crazy event, right after we do our first Pinnacle show with the Black Hole at Ricky's Sports Bar there in San Leandro. Do the Raider Oath for the first time for the world, Channel 5 News and all that kind of stuff. 2 months later in December, Raider Man gets shot. And I got to give you props because, whatever, what I call a guy, put it on your heart, you, King George. But to have you bring George Atkinson up to my ICU, where I'm in there, like kind of in the most pinnacle place of my life. I've seen a lot of ups and downs in this life. It's been pretty tough. But that was the most pinnacle spot in my life. It built Raider Man as an entity. Things were growing on with my mentor, Rob X and everything else. But the Black Hole saw fit to put me in a space. And then all of a sudden, my life is on the line. And somebody like George Atkinson, who the world's got all this vitriol for and say all this crap about, comes to my room. I still remember crying in there. I couldn't just get up to serve the man a glass of water. To be that down in a space to have that man come and lift me up. And over the years, have pinnacle conversations. My son went on to start playing college ball. He and G2, well, both of the twins actually got to play together in 707s and stuff like that out of DVC. But we built relationship. And I'll always honor the true friendship that he allowed me to have with him. I didn't get in as much as I, felt like I should be and all the rest of that kind of crap, but I'll never not support it. I'm Raider Man. I bleed silver and black, and I'm here. So, prayerfully, there's still a reach out coming, but I need that. And I just wanted to say my respects on today, man. I hope you're doing well. God bless you and your family. And hang on, love your people as long as you can, because no day is guaranteed.
Thank you.
I'm looking at you.
Appreciate it. You got it, Raider Man. Thanks for checking in. And that was a moment when I told George that Raider Man got shot. He was in ICU. He said, "Let's go." We got in the car and we drove there and we went to his room and sat with him for a while. And that was tough. I never saw anything like that in my life. I haven't since. That was pretty heavy. And George wanted to go the second I told him about it. So I appreciate you sharing that. Let's get out to Chris in West Oakland, who knew George Atkinson well. Go ahead, Chris.
Yes, by the way, great remembrance there by Raider Man. I remember all too well when he got shot being up there at Highland Hospital. I think I just missed you guys with George. But before I hit George, JT, I want to talk real quick. Mrs. Carol Davis. You talked about Mark coming back, and as far as I know, she never left the Piedmont house here that they owned since the 60s. Even when the Raiders, when I was a young kid just starting out at Airborne Express in the late 80s, very early 90s, before I was Chris in West Oakland, I worked in Piedmont, and I would get deliveries to Carol Davis at their house all the time. I don't think I ever told her I was a big Raider fan. How much to appreciate. She was just a very sweet old, well, hell, that was almost 40 years ago. She wasn't that old then. Just a very sweet, nice, respectful old lady. Would always call me by my name, would come out, always ask me if I wanted a soda or anything. Just couldn't be a nicer human being. So, again, to Mark Davis and the Raider family, my condolences. I know this is a tough day. Any day you lose your mother. I mean, it was a life well lived, but it's still a sadness. So, thoughts and prayers and condolences to the entire Davis family and to Carol Davis. Also, let's move on over to George. Look, man, you're right. I know what George meant to you because this guy, on top of being a great Raider, I think this guy is one of the more underrated football players of all time. When they talk about the great players of the 70s and the 60s, George is right there. He's a top safety of that era. I don't think he gets near enough love. But as a human being, I remember when you came to go to work for the Ticket 1050 on those shows with George. You do remotes from Ricky's. You would do remotes from, we go. I remember being at the Super Bowl in New Orleans, sitting around the bar with George. Best thing I can say about a guy like George Atkinson, and you know this all too well, and it's an overused phrase, the man was real. He never acted like he was above. Hey, I'm a Raider and you're not. I'm a professional. You're not. The guy couldn't have been more down to earth. He couldn't have been a more genuine human being. He would take the time to talk to everybody. And like I said, man, I know that you're doing a show today. I know how close this is home to you, and I'm sorry for your loss, brother. But I don't know any other way to say it other than George Atkinson is and always will be an all-time Raider great. I believe he's an all-time great, not just a Raider great. And unfortunately, as we get older, JT, some of these guys, it's almost like they have to die before we remember how great they were because people kind of forget and they get shoved to the wayside. I guess that's just what happens over the years. So my condolences to the Atkinson family and to you, JT, and your family. Rest in peace, George. This man, George and Carol Davis, as I love to say, they deserve a shot of Crown Royal and a Modelo from all of us tonight. Rest in peace to my Raider friends and family. Thanks for letting me get this and get on here and rant, JT.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. George was a member of my family. I would not be here today without George Atkinson. And as we said, he took everyone under his wing, including this Hall of Famer. The great Charles Woodson calls us on the passing of Mrs. Davis and George Atkinson. Charles, I know this is a tough day for you and your family. Thanks for checking in with us.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it definitely is, man. I got that news earlier, and just a shocker coming up the weekend when Miss Davis passed away, and then woke up this morning, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks, man. George. Anytime you see me around that facility, man, and George is there, man, that's my buddy, man. You know what I'm saying? He's family, but he's my buddy, man, and we just always had a great relationship, between him and Willie Brown, man. This is a tough one for me, man. It's a tough one.
Yeah, and then Charles, I saw that relationship blossom as a player similar to George. George came in; he was an unbelievable kickoff returner from the AFL and punt returner, cornerback, then the safety, Soul Patrol. You started hearing about Soul Patrol. You delve into the history of the Raiders and Super Bowl 11, plus all the great games that George played in. You played, unfortunately, you had the tuck rule. George had the Immaculate Deception. I think there's a lot of ties in the way that you played football and the way George played football all out.
Yeah, I think, when you get into that organization and you understand the history of the organization, especially the history of great defense, great DBs, man, you're compelled to play that way. I mean, I don't think there's any other way. And when you think about those guys, that the teams, with George and the names like Tatum and those guys, man, those guys, when you talk about playing all out, that was the real definition of being feared. Teams feared playing the Raiders. They feared running across the middle. And our guy, George Atkinson, was a big part of that. Versatile player, like you say, he did it all. But to me, man, forget about the football, man. Just again, George was my friend, man, and I saw him, man. I guess it's been a few months. I can't remember when it was, but I know that he had been dealing with some things, but I thought he was recovering, and yeah, just one of them things where I wish I had just one more moment to say, hey, George. Ain't nobody doing nothing. That was our little thing, man. Off the movie Life. Every time we saw each other, if he was in a room and I saw him, I'd just yell, ain't nobody doing nothing. And he knew who it was, man. And then we'd meet up, hug, and yeah, man, George, that's a tough one, man. So I'm feeling today for his family, and of course all the Raider Nation, because I know that Raider Nation loved George Atkinson the same way that I did.
Hey, Charles, last one. The times you saw him in the building and at practice, especially on the sidelines when you came out of the tunnel, but most recently as a Hall of Famer and an alumni, whenever you came back to a Raider game and you're on the field pregame warmups, I can't even count the amount of times I saw you standing with Mark and George and Cliff when Cliff was alive. And you mentioned the great Willie Brown as you all you guys stuck together, and then you had a chance to sit in Mark's box and watch the game together.
Man, if I saw those guys there on the field, I was gonna. Or if I didn't see them, I was gonna find them. If I knew they were at the game, man. You talk about Cliff. You talk about always smiling. Cliff always was in a great mood. Always great attitude, man. Always upbeat. And then again, and along with that was George, who we would stand on the sideline, man, and just chit chat about just everything. Chit chat about the game, about life. And just have a good time laughing with each other, man. And he just, I'm gonna miss that. I'm gonna miss that, man. Countless times in Mark's suite with George, and we stand up there and we talk, and we'd be mad about the same things happening on the field. We'd be saying, why won't he hit this guy? Why won't he check him at the line? You can't let him up the line free. You know what I'm saying? We just, just a lot of those times, man. That just going through my mind right now. We lost a great human being, man. I'm gonna miss George.
I look forward to seeing you soon, Charles. I'm sure there's going to be a lot happening with you and Mark talking about Mrs. Davis and George. And thanks for making time for our audience. They needed to hear from you today.
No doubt, man. Thanks for having me on.
You got it, Charles Woodson. All right, Charles has been right there with George. I mean, I think of Charles and George all the time, and most of the time sitting up in Mark's box or being on the sideline. So that's the tribute for now. There's going to be more tributes. And whenever people die, you want to give family time to breathe. You want to give the family time to console each other. But we're running a radio show, and, this is what we have. This is our platform. So I think today and the remainder of the week, I'm going to get into the game. I'm going to get into the bye week. I'm interviewing Pete Carroll tomorrow. We're going to get into this Jacksonville matchup. But I think Raider Nation, you know what you need to do today. Mrs. Davis passed away and George Atkinson. If you're a member of the Raider Nation, you're part of a family, and families stick together on days like today. The monologue brought to you by PTs. They are a proud partner, 5 to 7, midnight to 2, the best happy hour in town. Golden Entertainment, proud partner. They also own the Strat. They kick off the show as we're ready to roll. Goodbye, dear friend, George Atkinson. Sorry to see you go. Sorry to see you go, George. And to Mrs. Davis, rest in peace, a beautiful woman. to ride like a pro. M-Ride will take you round trip from Circa the Palm. All right, we're back, everybody. Thanks for helping me get through that, and we'll go from there. Get in and out quickly. Reserve your ride at mride.com. Use promo code BRICK. That's mride.com, promo code BRICK.
Tune in to Unnecessary Roughness here on Raider Nation Radio 920 every Monday at 2:30 in the afternoon as we speak with Raiders color commentator and former linebacker Kirk Morrison. That interview is brought to you by Credit One Bank. Credit One Bank, the official credit card of the Las Vegas Raiders.
It's time to ride at Friendly Ford. Over 800.
That was nice that Charles checked in.
Members, get these Rangers to protect them. Yes, to EVs. Stay monkeys.
Go back with any,
Atkinson
zone?
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
The NFL famous about him versus Chuck Norris.
Okay.
On Swan Song.
Guys, you ready to look your best and feel your best? This is JT the Brick from Nation Radio. For tomorrow, Aesthetics for Men. Their certified team delivers a true premium bed. All right, all right. I think George would like us to talk football. I think George would like that. More confident. That's Sahara and Fort Apache. Your appointment now at tmrwformen.com. That's tmrwformen.com.
Barkley. When Barkley smells gas,
Quick from Raider Nation Radio for M-Ride, the first provider of Allegiant Stadium. Ride like a pro, round trip to your favorite events at Allegiant Stadium. No more hassle parking, sitting in traffic, or waiting in long taxi or rideshare lines. M-Ride is, and you'll get in and out quickly. Go to mride.com to get a ride today. Dodgers tonight, yep. Dodgers. I was telling Clay, if the Dodgers lost game 2, the series would have been over. No way the Dodgers are going to win 4 in a row. That means, well, 4 out of 5 with 2 more games being played in Toronto. But now I think the Dodgers will win the series like I thought, 5 or 6 games.
In every match. Silver Sevens Hotel and Casino, where your favorite sports action is always on. Did I mention free parking? Yeah, parking's always free. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The holidays are here,
Okay,
full of joy,
Yeah.
family, friends, and yes, a little hustle and bustle. That's why you need Aleve. Between cooking, shopping, and all those extra errands, aches and pains can sneak in. Aleve is here to help with long-lasting body pain relief. Don't let body pain slow you down. With up to 12 hours of body pain relief per dose, you can keep up with the season's magic and all that awaits. Pick up Aleve and get back to what really matters, making memories. Use as directed.
Evan Harlan here for Monday Night Football on Westwood One. Join us all season long for primetime action on the road to the playoffs and Super Bowl 16. Each week, Hall of Fame quarterback Warner and I will have the custody. All right, let's get into this game. Don't miss out on the great NFL tradition. It is Monday Night Football. Monday nights on Raider Nation Radio 9:20 a.m.
Welcome back to the JT the Brick Show, brought to you by PT's, the best happy hour in town, 5 to 7 p.m. and midnight to 2 a.m.
George Atkinson reflects very deeply the intense dislike that the Raiders and the Steelers have for one another. Today, he filed a $3 million lawsuit against the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Oakland Tribune, and Pittsburgh coach Chuck Noll. This all dates back to a controversial play involving him and Lynn Swann.
I jumped it, man. So here it is. And if you don't want to get hit, it's best better not to show up when we play Sunday because I guarantee he will get hit.
I think George has proven himself and what kind of a person he is as far as his play on the field.
This one's soft.
Paying tribute to Mrs. Carol Davis and George Atkinson today. We lost 2 of the pillars of the Raider Nation here over the weekend. JT back with you. A lot to get to. We're brought to you by Modelo, proud partner of the show. Had a few Modelos with my dad and my son back in Florida. We were in Naples, Florida for the bye week there for a couple of days and had some good times out on the golf course and some dinners and nice time with my mom and dad. Good to be back here in Vegas, and we got a heavy week ahead of us. So tomorrow I'll interview head coach Pete Carroll. We got a lot to cover. Tyler Lockett now is a member of the Raider Nation. for everybody who's complaining about that. Let the coach and the GM go do their business. Let them go bring in players that they think could help right now. They're suffering through injuries. We're going to find out who's available. Could Jacoby Myers get traded? Yes. It's big boy radio. He hasn't been traded yet. Are there going to be some changes coming up here? Probably. We don't know what they're going to be because we're not John Spytek and we're not Pete Carroll. And they're running the team and they're trying to win every game. For those who don't think the Raiders are trying to win every game, don't call me, don't listen, go somewhere else. If you really don't think the Raiders want to win every game the way George Atkinson wanted to win every game, you're not smart enough to listen to this platform. They want to win. They want to go balls out every game. They haven't been playing well. I brought it up. I've been pretty aggressive on the poor play. As I told Clay as we were coming back, I think George Atkinson would like us to talk football. And, we pay tribute to him. If you want to call in on the legacy of Mrs. Davis and George, 702-365-9200. 702, that's our area code in Vegas, 365-9200. I would hope that the Raiders would play much better football coming off the bye week. But they still have injuries. And they got guys who are banged up. And they got players who are not performing to their ability. Nowhere near their ability. And you could say that about coaches and players. I don't think the offensive game plan has been good at all. It hasn't been productive. We know that. Hasn't been productive. The defense has popped at times. We've seen some good defense at times here, but they were blown out in a couple of games. And I got out of Dodge pretty quickly after the Kansas City loss, which if you go on any of my social media, I think I covered that and on the post-game show correctly. It was one of the worst football games ever played in Raider history, period. From an offensive perspective, it was one of the worst efforts and performances in Raider history on offense. So they took a break. They're coming back, hopefully rested, a little bit healed. They'll get some more guys back, and they'll try to go out there and beat Jacksonville. They're not facing Kansas City, Philadelphia. They're not facing Baltimore with Lamar Jackson healthy or the Bills. Jacksonville's a better team. But over the last couple of years, the Raiders and Jacksonville have been really similar. Two teams struggling, going through coaches, trying to figure out a way to win. And I would hope that the Raiders would show up at home. And again, there's going to be motivation, as we talked about in the first 30 minutes on those who passed away. The players are going to play just as hard as they would have if no one passed away. Hopefully harder because they understand the importance for the organization on individuals who played a big role, and maybe that gives them an extra edge. Hopefully the case, but we're just talking football now. And this week is a very important week for the vision of Pete Carroll and what he wants to do with this team the rest of the season. If they don't win this game and drop to 2-6, the writing's on the wall or it's already on the wall. And you know what type of season it's going to be. A win here could really get the Raiders the kickstart that they need to play better football and be more competitive the second half of the season. Notice I didn't say to be more competitive, to run the table or to win 8 games or to do that, just to play better football. When we went into the bye week, we didn't think that the Raiders would be coming off the bye week with such a bad game that they played in Kansas City. I've noticed a lot of people are saying, is it rock bottom? They use the term rock bottom. I don't know if they can play any worse. I would doubt they could play worse than they played at Kansas City, especially with all the coaches on the staff who are getting paid a significant amount of money to fix mistakes and change it up. As I said last Monday, a week ago, was my last show before I split for the bye week, whatever is happening on offense needs to completely be broken down and fixed, period. So whatever they thought was going to work was not working. So go fix it. Go fix it and try to get to the point where you can come back with something new. What would something new be? Would it be more elaborate? Would it be simpler? Would it be more hard-nosed? I don't know. I'm not a coach. But whatever they were doing needs to be thrown out, and something new has to happen. I think they're struggling because they don't have their best player, Brock Bowers, on offense. Normally, your best player on offense is the quarterback. That's not the case here with this edition of the Raiders. It's Brock Bowers. They brought in Tyler Lockett. He's a veteran. He's a good possession receiver. He has good chemistry with Gino. They put up nice numbers. Ashton Genty needed a break. He was getting pounded into the ground. Michael Mayer has popped a little bit here. And maybe Chip Kelly found out a way to scheme it up a little bit different for Dante Thornton and Jack Besh. Two very important draft picks on this team. I think the Raiders are in the problems that they're at now. They're at the problems they're at now because of the players that they have. The personnel isn't good enough compared to other teams around the league that have better players, not better coaches. No matter what, Pete Carroll, I'm fascinated that we're ranking Pete Carroll on 7 games. Guy's been coaching his whole life. He's been a great coach, not a good coach, a great coach his whole life. I'm trying to remind people, don't judge a guy on 7 games, but we're dealing with listeners who are season ticket holders, and I understand your pain. We get that. But Pete Carroll's got to fix this. And something big hopefully happened. Hopefully something happened over the bye week where the coaches got together when they came back and said, here's what we're going to do now. This didn't work. Check your egos at the door. We're going to try something new, and let's see if this can kickstart the team. And the rest of the week, one of the topics that I want to get to is, how would you kickstart the team? And don't be a wise ass and say fire the coach or fire the coach's son. We don't need that. You could go use that on anonymous social media posts that some people like to do. If you want to have an educated conversation on how the team can get better, that's where we're at. Because if they don't win this game, I don't do anything tanking or anything like that, not here. But we're going to have some really difficult conversations on what's going to happen going forward with the personnel. And by bringing in Tyler Lockett, for the people who are saying, well, let the young guys play, the young guys have had an opportunity to play and they're not getting it done. So other people are being brought in. Other people are being brought in because other guys aren't doing their job right. Now, a lot of guys aren't going to be back. A lot of guys are not going to be invited back. There could be some trades here at the trade deadline. But as we focus on the Jacksonville Jaguars going forward here, we're not talking about climbing Mount Everest. We're not talking about saying, oh, this is the toughest test in Raiders history. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence. I got a lot of my buddies who live in that area who they're adopted team. And I don't hang out with many guys who have adopted teams, but they moved down there and they support Jacksonville. They don't like Trevor Lawrence much at all. They don't like him at all. And they think he's one of the bigger underachievers that we've seen in quite some time. But Trevor Lawrence is a professional quarterback. He's a professional quarterback, and he can play well on any given Sunday. And this is it for Gino, in my opinion. I'm not saying this game is it, but if Gino couldn't come off the bye week and play better football in a better scheme and get his head on right with his legs and his arm angles and do a better job, Gino will not be the quarterback of the Raiders forever. I don't know if they're going to give him the whole year. I don't know if they're going to give him one more half of one home game. None of us know. So we're trying to speculate on that could be really tough. 702-365-9200 as we continue on. Let's get out to Gabe in Vegas. Gabe, thanks for waiting. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll just be really quick. Just want to say rest in peace to Mrs. Davis and also George Atkinson. Very shocking news. But to comment on Mrs. Davis, kudos to her for having such a strong support towards her husband and her son as well to become the successful owners that we were and are right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's nicely said. George had a big impact on the Raider organization as a player. Mrs. Davis had a massive impact. Let's remember, Mrs. Davis is the owner of the Raiders, along with her son. And she just passed away, an owner of the team. And, the partner of Al Davis. And what she saw, what I'm fascinated about Mrs. Davis is, you know what your mom was like. If your mom and you had a relationship, hopefully a great relationship or a longer relationship with your mom. Moms go through a lot. Moms have to worry about their kids, and moms have to worry about their husbands if they stay married and what they're dealing with. Mr. Davis had a lot going on. I mean, can you imagine what Mr. Davis had going on? From the games to the flights to travel, and she's there for all of it. The lawsuits, the players, signing players. I mean, she was there with them for all of it. All of it. I can't imagine the wealth of knowledge that she has. It's unimaginable. Is there a woman in the history? You look at the McCaskey family, Virginia McCaskey. You look at some of the other powerful women in the history of the NFL. The Ford family, Mrs. Ford, right? The owners that have been there. Well, with all due respect to those women who are very successful, they weren't married to Al Davis, who was the Maverick and one of the most impactful people in the history of sports, not just football. Mrs. Davis saw a lot, and I can imagine what she's thinking about tonight, looking down on not only her son, but her friends and family. She had a lot of friends, and a lot of people cared about her. 702-365-9200. Let's get out to Ven. Is that Ven in Denver? Ben, go ahead.
Hey, JT, what's going on? No, it's Ben.
Oh, thank you, Ben.
In Denver.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. No. Hey, so, I mean, first of all, my condolences to, those two incredible Raider greats that, have gone on to the next world. But anyway, I did want to talk a little football with Jacksonville coming up.
Mm-hmm.
But, one thing that I just doesn't sit right with me is John Spytek. I wish I can hear. When are we going to hear more from John Spytek? Where I mean, obviously Pete does the press conferences and all that, but I wish we can get John Spytek out and about on camera and kind of address the fans. And I mean, I have a lot of trust in John, and I just feel like this is more of Pete kind of Seattle thing, which is fine, but I want to hear from John. I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't have much to say on that because I don't direct John Spytek to the microphone. That's his decision. And I know he's very active in the building and with his football department and people. From what I hear, I don't know John very well, but I have his back. And I know what he's doing here is trying to build the team that's going to get the Raiders, thanks for the call, to the next level. And it's been harder than he expected. I think we could all say it's been harder than anybody expected here. Trying to get this team back on track, a team that hasn't been on track when it comes to wins and losses, now it's on him. And he's trying to do his best here, but the draft picks need to play a little bit more, and the personnel needs to be evaluated very closely, and I think he's doing that. And we'll let you know when you hear from him. It'll probably be on this channel on Raider Nation Radio. I'll do a Canes here.
Also asked about the identity.
Sam Munson at 1.
Control the game. I think after we won, like soft, explosive offense. This is everything we thought we saw during training camp, and then stop.
Morning tailgate, weekdays at 7.
How we do? We got a lot of good people in here today on a Monday. Messy Jesse. I mean, that's why they brought in Lockett to help Geno. That's pretty obvious. Lockett and Geno had really good chemistry. Violator. Wasted talent. Good to see you. We'll hear from him this week.
$1,000 in bonus bets. For information, official rules, and some participating sign-up locations, visit williamhill.us. Must be 21. Gambling problem?
Yeah, I don't think Spytek is hiding at all. He drafted players. He signed players. The players aren't getting it done.
Banks require good credit. So how does that work in Dollar Loan Center? Look, a lot of people have a crappy credit score, Craig.
A lot of people don't want to give these guys time to do their job, and they're going to get time to do their job. Apologize if you don't like that. They're going to get time to fix this job. We need some stability around him. Pete Carroll and Spytek were brought in for football stability. They're not going to be judged on 7 games. They're going to be judged on 17 and an off season and doing that. But we're right now. We're not even at the middle or at the midpoint of the season. There's going to be a lot more to get to. Look at Megan Sheeny calling me a shill. Another person hiding that is nowhere to be found. Right? Nowhere to be found. Imagine calling me that after everything I do for this team and how hard I work for this team, and someone saying that, huh? Isn't that amazing? And they're all cowards and they all hide and they're nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. Still never met one person to say that to my face. Not one. But part of the job, right? Nowadays, it's good, Big D, because you just hit one button and you never hear from them again. They're never, ever, ever seen from again. I've been blocking a lot of people on X, and we'll never see them again, man. As I'm trying to tone down the anger of some of these trolls.
Where they live, they see because the Richard Harris Law Firm employs over 150 local people.
Trabajamos aquí.
It's right here. We know Nevada. We know the force. We know how to win. If you're injured in an accident, you're hired to represent you. The Richard Harris Law Firm, 444-4444.
It's time to ride a Briley Ford. Over 800 vehicles to choose
Are we going to the top of the hour or are we coming back?
Come back in 1 minute.
And then we have
Seconds, and then we'll have 3 minutes.
Okay.
At the most.
Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff.
And put Charles Richard's interview in the system, so if we want to play it back.
Yep.
I can email it to you later.
Yes.
plus 95.
Wow. How's the morning tailgate going?
That's rough at the moment. There's nothing that's
3 hours of radio, Clay, is very difficult. That's why I do 2 hours. I don't do 3. I got to do 5 hours today. We got the national show tonight and tomorrow on Mad Dog.
Let's cheat the Hall of Excellence Sports Museum, Fontainebleau, Las Vegas. The Hall of Excellence sports legends live on through iconic artifacts. See Jackie Robinson's barrier-breaking bat, 7 of Tom Brady's championship rings, and so much more. Each piece tells a story of greatness and game-changing moments. Experience the history. Get your tickets now at FontainebleauLasVegas.com.
Welcome back to the JT the Brick Show, brought to you by Tito's Handmade Vodka, America's original craft vodka. Visit Tito'sVodka.com.
From the opening bell to the closing bell, you're going to get hit. You're going to get hit hard, and you're going to get hit consistently.
George Atkinson.
It's not a contact sport. It's a collision sport. And that's what makes it a wide receiver.
I love that. George Atkinson, he passed away, and we're paying tribute to him, as you know that. Also, Carol Davis, Mark Davis's mom, passed away. If you have something you'd like to say about both those individuals and their impact on the Raiders, please do take advantage of us. 702-365-9200, brought to you by Canes. Go to RaisinCanes.com. Get the sandwich combo, the 3-finger combo, the Caniac. My kids are Caniacs. The box combo is my absolute favorite. The world of Canes. You can find it all at RaisinCanes.com. Not only proud partner of our show, but proud partner of UNLV football, and they're having a big year. And I love what Canes does to work together for the community. Canes supports over 30,000 local organizations, and they can't do it alone. Get in touch to help us support the community at RaisinCanes.com, proud partner of the show. So as it comes to Jacksonville this week, we'll have a lot to say about this matchup here. They got a couple of good receivers. We played them last year. We should be very familiar with them, what they do. Trevor Lawrence, I think you can get to all day long. But the Raiders have to stop beating themselves. You hear that term a lot in sports. Stop beating yourselves. Well, what does that mean? The Raiders have been playing so badly on offense that they don't have a chance to win these games. They don't even have a chance. Now they had a bye week to fix the offense. That's all that matters now. Did they fix the offense? Will it look different? Will it be faster? Will it be more difficult? Will it be more difficult on the opponent? I don't know. But Chip Kelly is making a lot of money. The head coach is making a lot of money, and the players are making a lot of money to play better. And that'll be the focus with Jacksonville. We're going to learn a lot. because the Kansas City performance is behind us, and it wasn't a performance. It was god-awful. Now they got to go out and play a great football game if they're going to win.
Seven is Q Myers, your boy Q. Join me for Unnecessary Roughness at Silver Sevens, where they
All right,
love
everybody, I'm
locals,
going to
great
keep it
food and
here
drink
for one more
specials, plus all
segment.
the
We
fun
have
NFL
Sam
action.
Munson,
Don't miss every Monday
who's going to
with me
join
live
us
at Silver Sevens
at the
starting
top
at
of
2
the hour.
p.m.
He does a
PS.
national interview
First
with me,
20 listeners
that will play
get your
tonight,
first beer free.
and then we'll get back to the game.
With the Pilgrim from Port of Stars.
Maybe my son
Turkey,
can put
stuffing,
George
cranberries,
Atkinson up
and
here.
rosemary Swiss
We'll get
bread.
maybe a
Basically
picture of
Thanksgiving
George.
in every bite.
And we'll be right back.
Just gratitude.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
Wood Gaming is the official exclusive table casino partner for Las Vegas Raiders at Allegiant Stadium. Bring your friends, have some fun, but always bet on black. Visit their 10 casinos across the valley. Don't let the game get out of hand. Please bet responsibly.
On Halloween, the only thing spookier than ghosts and goblins and things that go bump in the night is fighting off the insurance company zombies. Hi, this is Paul Pata from Paul Pata Law. If you've been in a car accident, motorcycle accident, or slip and fall, our spectacular winning team of legal experts will scare off those evil insurance company zombies and get you everything you deserve. No tricks, just treats. Remember, it's not about the injury, it's about the recovery. Go to paulpadalaw.com and have a safe and happy Halloween.
You did it again. You made us #1 in USA Today's 10th Best for the third year in a row. Voted Yamava Resort and Casino in San Manuel the best casino outside of Las Vegas for the third time. And Yamava Resort grabbed a first-time win as the best casino hotel. Enjoy the winning atmosphere at one of more than 150 gaming tables, more than 7,400 slot machines, and 5 high-limit rooms. That's not all. Grab a bite at the Pines Modern Steakhouse, voted the best casino restaurant for the third year in a row. You win? Details at yamava.com. Must be 21 to enter. Please gamble responsibly.
What's up, Raider Nation? It's your boy Q Myers from Unnecessary Roughness here on Raider Nation Radio 920. The holidays are just around the corner. It's time to show up in force with Albertsons to combat hunger and stock the pantry at the Salvation Army. Come join us and the rest of Raider Nation Radio 920 on Saturday, November 1st at the Albertsons, located at 7151 West Craig Road, as we collect canned and other non-perishable food items. Again, that's the Albertsons at 7151 West Craig Road. Raider Nation Radio 920, Albertsons, and the Salvation Army joining together to do the most good.
Hey, Dad, that spaceship like lunch meeting at noon? Please say it's not more astronaut ice cream and powdered orange drink.
Negatory. Ground Control hooked us up with EasyCater, so now we can order from a galaxy of restaurants with tools to stay on budget and meet our dietary needs.
Thank heavens, my dairy tolerance and anti-gravity is not great.
And with EasyCater, it's all on one simple platform, so we can focus on space stuff, like that asteroid. But how about tacos? Hold the cheese.
EasyCater, a stellar way to order food for work. Order now at easycater.com.
This fall, get in the game and earn cash for betting sports with the William Hill Nevada mobile sports app on your phone or tablet during William Hill's Fall Rewards.
Good teams win, great teams cover, huh?
He came into that bounty, trying to win that contest.
Yeah.
So I'll call him once we get you up.
Yeah, once we get me up. Yeah.
Here, 45 seconds.
Hill.us. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
ESPN Las Vegas and Raider Nation Radio invite you to the official Raider.
All right, we are on to hour number 2 of the show. And I watched a great documentary on Martin Scorsese. Jeez, Mr. Scorsese. Highly recommended if you have Apple TV. Man, that was good. Anybody watch it?
Responsibly. First HVAC techs, truck tractors, and TI wires. The Cat Dale Industrial Operator has the tools, starts, supplies to power your next project.
Weird weekend in football. The Jets won. How about the Jets winning, huh?
I put it on the sound sheet. Just felt so good to hear them win.
Did you see 33% of the teams got beat on that Falcons loss at Circa Survivor? 33% of the pool.
Kirk Cousins.
They just don't want a bunch.
Let's get Sam going.
His track record speaks for itself. He competes every single day, and that's what I love about him.
Your Silver and Black home to sound off for over 25 years.
I will play harder longer than the guy lining up across, team lining up across from me. And if you're not, then I want to be the space. That's where the Raiders make it. But I expect excellence every day. And now here's JT the Brick.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour number 2 of Raider Nation Radio. JT back in studio with Clay Baker today. We are spending most of the show talking about the legacy and life of Carroll Davis, Mrs. Davis, Mark's mom, passed away, and George Atkinson, my dear friend, my Raider mentor, passed away, and we found out that news a little while ago. And the Raiders put out a statement, and you can react to that. A lot of people have a heavy heart today. So many people around the NFL respect Mrs. Davis and her legacy and what she was able to do as the partner of Al Davis and the mother of Mark Davis. And George Atkinson was one of the greatest all-time Raiders, just one of the best Raiders you could have. He was not perfect. He was not perfect on and off the field, but he was one of the Raider greats. And everything that he did with the Raiders, he tried to go out and win. Did he go a little bit over the top? Yeah. In today's day, you couldn't play like George Atkinson. A couple of people text me that. A former player said the same thing. What I loved about George, let me find the text. I'll leave his name out. Not a Hall of Famer, but close. Said, what I loved about George is that George couldn't have played today, and that's a compliment. Yeah, I agree with that. Some players from back in the day, Ronnie Lott, George Atkinson, could not play today with the rules. No doubt about it. Every Monday, we welcome Sam Munson to the show from the 33rd team. And Sam, I want to jump in and begin with Myles Garrett in that 5-sack performance, but again, on a losing effort. How do you think he's handling this as he looks at his legacy there individually and the opportunity maybe to move on, not so much this year, but in years to come, and play for a championship?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's getting frustrated. Myles Garrett is arguably the best player in the NFL, regardless of position, certainly one of the best. He's a dominant force. He's an all-time great as a pass rusher. He's putting himself up there, with names like Reggie White in terms of sack numbers over his first few years in the league. And yeah, the Browns are not giving him anything to work with. The Browns are not competitive enough to win football games and to have him competing where he wants to be. And, he knew that a year ago. That was why he was sort of agitating for a move then, and they gave him the giant new contract and kept him in the building. I'm sure the frustrations will continue, but they're not going to want to trade him away. If they do want to move in the right direction, if they do want to build something, it's going to include Myles Garrett.
Tell you, Sam, I talked to some Falcon fans last night. We were freaking out over that loss to the Dolphins, 34-10. The Dolphins have the talent to put up numbers like that, but we just saw the Falcons a couple of weeks ago look really good on Monday Night Football. What'd you see when you looked at the tape here of the fall of the Falcons and the Dolphins finally putting a game together?
Yeah, I mean, the Falcons are one of the more confusing teams in the NFL this year. They kind of lurch between good performance and bad performance. Some of it was explained, what is explainable. They were without Drake London. They were without Michael Penix, their quarterback. So, if you had said, all right, these two guys are going to be missing, you could at least understand an offensive performance that didn't really show up, particularly if Miami had a game where they just decided, look, we're going to clamp down on the run this time. We're going to crowd the line of scrimmage with bodies. Our defensive linemen are going to show up for once. I mean, that part at least made some sense. The fact that their defense wasn't able to slow down the Miami offense at all was the real shock, I think, of that game. Like, their defense has had elite games this season and really caused some good offensive problems. And they were gashed all throughout the game by Miami.
Yeah, it was incredible to see. A lot of times when a team comes back and the Jets had 23 points on the road in the fourth quarter, I think what's really interesting about what's happening here is that Joe Flacco's part of that. If you can't keep drives going and the Jets are going to get the ball back, when you look at that game overall, what you see, because all the Bengals had to do is get a couple of more first downs and the Jets wouldn't have the time to come back and have that epic comeback win.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I think, it's a little bit sort of hard to blame the offense for that, even though you're right. They had it within their control to basically put the game away and to keep those drives going. But the big problem is the Cincinnati defense just couldn't stop the Jets all game long. I mean, they were running all over them. They were allowing drives all the way through every single time the Jets touched the football. And eventually, Joe Flacco and the Bengals offense had a couple of drives late in the game where they weren't able to just keep going and answering every time the Jets came down and scored. And those were the critical drives, that gave the Jets their opportunities. But I think coming out of that game, you're a lot more critical and disappointed in the defensive performance than you are by the offensive one.
I want to move on to what you thought of the Scatterboo injury and what the Giants do from now, because Daboll's saving grace was to put Dart in. Hopefully Scatterboo and Dart find some chemistry, lead them to more games and more wins down the stretch. It doesn't look like that's going to happen there. And, man, the Eagles, and your comment also on that tush-push play that Daboll was freaked out about. It looked like a fumble to me at the end of it.
Yeah, the officiating in this game, I think, was terrible start to finish. And that was the one that really interested me. I think the rule is crazy. They basically ruled that forward progress had been stopped, but everyone assumes that means when the whistle blows, but it's not. It's when the official just on the side just decides, okay, forward progress is done. The play's over now, even though nobody knows it yet till the whistle blows. So their logic was basically that I know it looked like a fumble and no whistle had blown, but the official had already decided forward progress is stopped. So the play was dead, and you can't challenge that. That's crazy to me as a rule. And yet that's what they decided happened on that play. But there were a bunch of terrible officiating calls in this game. There was a deep offensive pass interference that took away a touchdown for the Giants. There was a whistle during a kick for the Eagles that by rules should have meant a do-over on the kick, which would itself have been ridiculous. Just a terribly officiated game. I thought, the Eagles were the better side, but I thought the Giants actually did hang tough and show that the win a couple of weeks ago wasn't really a fluke. Jackson Dart looked good again. And then, a really unfortunate injury to Scatterboo. And, they're on the one hand, they've got some insulation there. They've got a couple of good players in that backfield as well. But on the other hand, Scatterboo was bringing such energy and excitement to that team. It's just such a bummer to see him go down.
Sam Munson's always our guest on Mondays, a co-host of the Check to Mike podcast. James Cook having that game, I think, was really important, not because of the opponent and on the road, but I don't think the Bills, I picked them to win the Super Bowl this year. I don't think they can win without having an elite performance by a running back multiple times in the playoffs. Josh Allen's Superman, but there's going to be a snow game either in Buffalo or on the road where they're going to have to run the football, and Cook played the type of game where I could see that happening in a big playoff game.
Yeah, absolutely. He looks like a fantastic running back right now. He's dynamic, he's fast, he's explosive. I think, the thing about that Bills offense is they can win in a variety of different ways. They can have a game like this where James Cook looked fantastic and was really the bell cow. They can have games where Josh Allen needs to be Superman and win that way and not have a run game. They've got the ability to win a variety of different games, and that I think is how you can potentially go on a run in the playoffs, because those games are going to be different, and each one may be different. So I think that really stands in their stead.
Sam, as we wrap this up, I work with Rod Woodson, and he's on the Ravens broadcast, and we were doing a podcast about them potentially running the table. Not all of the games, because they have tough games later on in the season, New England, at Green Bay, they have Pittsburgh. But in these next couple of games, after just beating Chicago handedly with the backup, they're at Miami, at Minnesota, at Cleveland, Jets at home, Cincinnati at home. Those 5 games, I think they could win 5 of those games. And with the game they just won, that would be 6 in a row. Do you think there's a chance for them to do it, or with all the injuries, they'll have one trip up along the way?
No, they've absolutely got the chance to do it. And they don't even need to be, that perfect. They've got the couple of games against Pittsburgh as well coming up, and that's the team ahead of them in the division, or the team sitting at the top of the division. There's a reason that the division odds never swung that far away from them. It was only ever, a coin flip, basically. Pittsburgh were slight favorites at one point. I would imagine, I haven't checked today, but I would imagine it went back the other direction based off the results yesterday, that now Baltimore are slight favorites again, despite being just a 2-win team. They have this easy schedule upcoming. They've also got those 2 games against Pittsburgh upcoming, and they were going to get healthier than when they were playing at their worst, and they still haven't got Lamar Jackson back. So I think there's absolutely a good chance that the Ravens go on a run, get themselves firmly back in contention, and really have it entirely in their own hands to win the division.
Sam, last one. I don't know if you spent any time on your platforms talking about this NBA gambling. saga controversy and how all the commissioners are pretty much aligned together with the growth of all these gambling platforms and the fact that players now, the prop bet seems to be something really important that the NBA wants to get away from. And the prop bet was always big during the Super Bowl because you could bet props just for the Super Bowl. But now prop bets are really important. A lot of my friends who are gamblers, and I'm based in Vegas, sometimes instead of betting the side of a game, they'll just go full prop bets. How do you see this going forward and the importance to the league?
Yeah, of course. Unfortunately, I think this is the inevitable consequences of getting this entrenched and this close to the gambling world. Like, there's a reason that all sports leagues, but the NFL in particular, always wanted to be as far away from gambling as humanly possible. Over the last decade, it's for exactly this reason. And then eventually it gets, properly legalized, and there's just so much money and legitimate money in there now. And the NFL wasn't going to resist that kind of temptation. Neither was any other sports league. But this is the concern. This is the risk, is that it's such a fine line between, legal, kind of endorsed fun attached to the game, and actually you just stepped over that line. Now you are, undermining the very fabric of the game itself, and it's a massive problem. So this is the first, I think, of those sort of significant scandals, but it's absolutely not going to be the last one.
Absolutely. Great work as always, Sam. Always appreciate your insight. Talk to you next week.
Anytime. Take it easy.
Sam Munson, please download his platforms. They're really good. Check the Mic is a podcast. One of the only few that I listen to in sports is his. He's really good. I think you'll like it. Put it in your library of podcasts and enjoy it. And I think if you start getting a couple of podcasts that you like, they'll rotate and show up on your stream, and you'll really appreciate that. I told you about the Hydrofacial at Tomorrow Aesthetics for Men. Everyone's favorite skin health treatment. We have a new proud partner here, Tomorrow Aesthetics for Men on Sahara out in Summerlin. And they have a whole bunch of different opportunities and products that you could lose. You want to lose weight, you want to have your hair grow back, you want to have a whole bunch of unique opportunities. If you like Botox, there are men out there that really appreciate that. This is your men's spa, and they're a proud partner of the show. And I think the results from the Hydrofacial, you'll be really happy with. It diminishes the look of lines and wrinkles. It smooths the texture. It gives you better skin tone. And again, guys, see, all these ladies have these unbelievable spas. We have one for you. It's a men's spa. I think I sent 2 buddies in there already, and they came out and said, wow, I had no idea. Comfort, cool. The staff understands it. If you haven't done this before, go in there, take a look. Tomorrow Aesthetics for Men. They've made me real comfortable over there. They listen to the show. They're proud partners of the show. And we'd like you to check them out. Try the Hydrofacial or take a look at their menu of other treatments that you could have. It'll make you feel better. It will relax you in a time where I think you need to relax more. All right, if you're joining us late, we opened up the show talking about the passing of Carol Davis, Mark's mom, and also George Atkinson, Mark's best friend. Wow. So for Mark to be up now in the Bay Area as his mom passed away, and she will be resting in peace next to Mr. Davis, it was one of the more unique days of my life. I was a guest at Al Davis's funeral. And I was there, and the pallbearers who were there were the Mount Rushmore of the Raiders. And that was a day I'll never forget, that Mark invited me up there for that event. And I got a chance to see a whole bunch of special people around to pay tribute to Al Davis. Mark will do this in a private, classy way for his mom. And then Mark will have, I'm sure, a lot to say about his friend George Atkinson, because Mark and George are really tight. I was really tight with George. You might have been tight with George. And we want to hear from some fans because we have the Jacksonville game coming up. So we have 2 big topics this week. Well, really 3. One's Jacksonville, and I got to do my job and break down the team. We think we do that well. Going to get into the Raiders and what they need to do. I interview the head coach tomorrow. And then we're going to talk about what I think is critical going forward is what is the Raiders' game plan the rest of the season? I have no idea. By bringing in Tyler Lockett, I think the message that they're sending is simple. And a lot of Raider fans can't understand, Clay, simple. Most of our listeners do, but the people that are trolling are like, oh, this sucks, man. They just want to become the Seahawks. Seahawks have been better than the Raiders for quite some time. Not even close. The Seahawks have been better than the Raiders for quite some time. Not even close. So if they want to bring in a former Seahawk who's better than guys on the Raiders and who has been better than guys on the Raiders, who wants to be here and help Geno, if it helps the Raiders win an extra game or two, that's what this is about. I know there are some Raider fans, and now it's interesting because Raider fans don't even know who's in the draft. In the past, it'd be like, oh, I want to tank for this guy. They don't even know who's in the draft. Okay, we don't know who's going to be there. We don't know where the Raiders are going to pick today because we have a full season coming up. But I think by bringing in Tyler Lockett, it sends a bit of a message that the Raiders want to win and make Geno more comfortable. Oh, boy. Do we have to make Geno more comfortable? Starting to look that way because Geno's not comfortable. I think he's comfortable telling us that he's okay. He's okay. He's throwing interceptions. He understands why he's making mistakes, and he'll figure it out. He's not figuring it out. So now he's got a new friend of his coming here and the bye week. It's pretty good. So we are going to judge Geno by this next game, right? I've been judging him after every game. I've been going on the post-game show saying, man, I can't believe how poorly Geno was playing. I can't believe that Geno was playing this poorly. Well, how much longer can I say that? A week? 2 weeks? You get the Cowboys coming into town. Cowboys got boat raced by Denver. We played Denver twice. We played the Chargers still in Kansas City. So if the Raiders come out and play a physical game where they're much cleaner and their offense pops against Jacksonville, I think that'll get the attention of the other teams that they're playing. It'll be like, oh, look, the Raiders have 3 wins. Most of the league has 4 or 5. They're 1 game back of what the average team is doing here. But if the Raiders lose this game against Jacksonville, then I think for the first time in a long time for me, and I don't even know if I could admit this, I don't even remember the last time, I'd be saying not lose games, but play the younger players. Play hard, do what you have to do, but get some young guys in the game who can, let's just evaluate more of the players. Not tank, still go out there and compete and play hard, but go out there and play the players that you have to evaluate going into the offseason. Because if you look at the amount of draft picks who haven't played, that's concerning. I thought it was a pretty good draft, didn't you, when it came out? I did. I was at the Palms. There was 5,000 people there. I was on stage with Eric Allen, who drafted those players, Ashton Genty. I thought it was a pretty good draft. Some of the draft picks aren't even getting on the field. They're not active. So what do you do? I don't know. I think they think that the veteran players are better than the drafted players, and they still want to win games. Snow Raider says, Geno's bank account, very comfortable. Time to step it up. Yeah, I would agree. Geno knows this. When anything we're saying here, Geno is aware of. Geno knows he's playing poorly. He's got to play better. I don't think he's working any harder. I think he's working his ass off to try to be good. He's just run into some really bad games, some pretty good opponents. There's been some injuries, but no matter what happens, when I watch these games during bye week with my wife and sons, it's amazing how some teams can do it really easy and the Raiders can't. They have backup quarterbacks, right? We see backup quarterbacks on other teams. Mac Jones, Joe Flacco, they're putting up a lot of points. Why aren't the Raiders doing that? We're seeing running backs lesser than Ashton Genty get more yards. Why is that? We're seeing wide receivers who are not drafted or 6th-round picks go out there and have more production than the Raiders' top 2 wide receivers. Why is that? I think because the Raiders on their offensive side of the ball, because of their below average currently, this is not being rude. I'm never rude. Their below average offensive line has not done a good enough job. Either the players aren't good enough or the scheme isn't good enough. What is it? If the Raiders had a really good offensive line, I think they'd still be okay, even though the scheme isn't working with Geno. But the problem is Geno isn't playing well because the offensive line isn't very good. Do you believe, Clay, the offensive line possibly got better during the bye week? And I'm not being a wise ass. Do you think the bye week might help the offensive line be a little bit better?
It couldn't get any worse. Maybe you start working on your timing with Gino's dropbacks and understanding how much time he has to throw the ball, so he's not having to hold on to the ball any longer. It could only help. Because you remember last year, it took like week 10 until that bye week happened. That was a team last year that needed an earlier bye.
They did.
So they could get things figured out. Maybe this is that same path right now for them to actually go and make some turnaround on the offensive line, because it did help last year after the bye week.
Yeah, I'll be in the building tomorrow. I want to know who's getting healthy. I want to know what it looks like in practice. I want to know who's coming back, ready to play. That's going to be really important. How many bodies will the Raiders have lined up, ready to go? Hour number 2, we have a completely different audience in the first hour. George Atkinson passed away. Mrs. Carol Davis passed away. For the football fans out there, when it comes to the players and the teams, what's your best recollection of George as a player and a broadcaster? I'll be doing that all week, but I wanted to start that now. And for Mrs. Davis, the greatness of Mrs. Davis and her late husband, Al Davis, together again. Thanks, everyone. Pretty tough show today. Difficult time. Thanks for being there for me. I greatly appreciate it. And again, I think I'll be a little bit more focused tomorrow. It's kind of all over the place today for obvious reasons. But thank you for watching and listening.